Thank you. So, just a few house cleaning items to get this started. Please hold your questions to the end. And at that point, we will ask, you're welcome to either unmute yourself and ask out loud or put your question in the comments. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. We're also asking everyone to be respectful and civil in your questions and comments, meaning don't personalize them, don't use offensive language, and if you do, we may need to remove you from the meeting. So we're going to start with team introductions and then walk you through today's agenda. So to start off, my name is Lynn Scherer. I'm a project program manager with King County. I've been working on CDBG for 3.5 years. Lori? Please unmute yourself. Still muted, Lori.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
All right, three's the charm. I am Lori Wells. I am happy to see all of you. I am the Community Development Lead Program Manager, and I have been with the county a few months longer than Lynn. Dave?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's David Mecklenburg. I work for King County Community Development as a project manager. I've been here a few more years than Lori or Lynn.
Andrea?
Andrea.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Howerton. I work in the DCHS contracts and procurement team. I'm helping the team with this RFP. I'm also the RFP lead.
Thank you. So just to give you a quick overview of what we're going to be going through today, we're going to do a general overview of the CDBG program and the types of programs the types of projects that we fund. That's going to include the national objective for CDBG, what low and moderate income areas are, which LMAs, which is an acronym you're going to hear a lot, where we fund projects, and the types of funding that are available by subregion, which this program we divide by Northeast or South. Then Andrea will walk us through the Zoom Grants online application process. We'll talk about the timeline for everything from application to actual funding, and then there should be plenty of time for questions and answers. So what is CDBG? This is a program that was started by HUD almost 50 years ago that's designed to develop viable and vibrant urban areas for low and moderate income people. King County is considered an entitlement area, which means that we receive our own amount of funding directly from HUD that we can then allocate and grant out depending on King County, what kind of projects we receive and what our priorities are. So we use non-housing CDBG funds for projects that meet HUD's objectives and some examples of that are things like minor home repair and rehabs, public facilities like sidewalks and water sewer upgrades and parks, and then also for economic development assistance like micro enterprises, which is helping very small businesses that are run by low and moderate income people. Those are defined by less than 5 people, having 5 employees, either start them or expand them. Dave is going to walk us through CDBG's priorities.
Okay, so what CDBG has two different pieces to it, doing an eligible activity, and then it must meet a national objective. The objectives are also prioritized by the county's CDBG consortium. And so what our funds primarily go towards are area benefit programs and projects, limited clientele projects, and I'll explain all of these in a little bit more detail in just a few slides. Housing, a very specific kind of housing project, and I'll say right now, it's usually minor home repair of single family residences. It's not multifamily housing projects. So and then micro enterprise as a form of economic development. Next slide, please. So the low income thing is the thing that it's really sort of built around. What it means is that your project would need to serve low moderate income individuals in one way or another. There's a couple different ways you can do that. But is that? It's based on the HUD median incomes. So if you're 80% or lower of the HUD median income, and you can see the family size in this matrix on the screen right now, if you are serving over 51% of your clientele is this meets these criteria, then that means you're serving a low moderate income population. There's a couple different ways you can do that too. The first one here, it mentions a low moderate income area. That is where you have a census tract or block group that, or even a census area that wherein the population is 51% or greater low moderate income. Next slide, please. How do you find out what this stuff actually is? Well, if you're serving individuals or families, you would probably do income surveys. You may do income screening. It sort of depends on how your program is set up. A low moderate income area is where you would actually need to use the HUD web tool to map out your low moderate income area to see if it meets up. There's information in the Zoom Grants library about how to go to this website and how to use the map to find out if you're doing a low mod area project. I'll say at this point, a low moderate area income project usually is the type of something like, you know, it might be a sewer or it might be a park. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the next slide. But this is where you would go to find that information out. Next slide, please. So what are some of these projects if we're getting a little bit more detailed? An area benefit project is something like a sidewalk or street improvements that's in, for example, a low moderate income census tract. It can be water or sewer lines as well that serve a low moderate income area population. It can be neighborhood facilities. Neighborhood's very specific in this point in that it's usually something that's very localized, meaning that people can generally walk to it. Now, that doesn't mean that they have to walk to it, of course. For accessibility purposes, it means it's fairly local, like within maybe a mile radius at most of what a neighborhood facility would be. This is in opposition, and this is very important in King County, to a regional facility. A regional facility could be something like a park that does softball league activities, or another big facility that would draw people from all over King County. Now, you may really just be serving a area around that. It's important to say, well, we serve all of King County. The problem is that doesn't work for CDBG because King County is less than 51% low moderate income. So you got to get a little bit more narrower about where your population is that you're serving. Another one that would work is facade improvements in neighborhood commercial districts. These are kind of, if you can think of little small areas of commercial districts that are usually within larger residential areas that are low moderate income areas. Another way of actually doing this is called limited clientele. And there's two different types of it. One is a presumed benefit population. That's the first list there of abused children, seniors, etc., that follows that list. These are populations that if you primarily serve them, HUD's okay with that because of statistically, it can show that these folks are usually 51% or greater low income. Or you can do this confirmation with income screening. You can actually have somebody fill out a form. They turn in maybe a W-2 or something that shows that their family size and everything meets the moderate or lower median income scores. Or it can be a nature and location where most users will be primarily LMI. For example, if it's a daycare facility within a public housing complex, it could be a senior center in a fairly low mod area. Those are the types of projects that can do that. ADA ramps are a good example of this in that even though you may have the need to maybe upgrade some ADA ramps in side curb cuts, for example, or ones we see the most, where you're removing an architectural barrier, and that's an important thing. When you remove an architectural barrier, it means something is already there that people have built that makes it harder for people to access. And if you remove that per ADA standards, that works because ADA is serving a severely disabled presumed benefit population. So you may have a curb cut in an area that's not low moderate income, but it's primarily serving perhaps low moderate income individuals because they're using the ramp. That's the idea behind ADA curb ramps. So they're a popular option for this. Next slide, please. The other piece of this is housing. And again, we're very specialized with this because we have a couple of other different sibling programs in the division of housing and community development that work with big housing projects that are multifamily. The housing finance program works with them, or large homeless shelters and other things like that. You may be able to find some other stuff with that. But for minor home repair and rehabilitation, these are primarily small projects like installing grab bars, or maybe an ADA ramp up to a door, or maybe fixing some siding or doing some other stuff for a low moderate income homeowner. Those people, by income screening, are qualified, and that would be an eligible activity for a program to do. If you're wanting to do larger rehabilitation projects, and generally that's in the neighborhood of about $20,000 or more, we usually refer that to the housing repair program, which is another one of our sibling programs in our division. Micro enterprise, finally, is a type of work that HUD allows where you are assisting businesses that are small. They can't be more than 5 people, and one of whom needs to be the owner, and that owner needs to be low moderate income. If they meet all of those criteria, or it's a low income person who maybe wants to start a small business, those people can be considered for micro enterprise assistance. And usually what that looks like is a program that helps people, how do you fill out your business license, and what kind of maybe accounting software do you need, and how are you going to do marketing, and how are you going to raise capital? The kinds of assistance that programs like that can provide, CDBG can help pay for. Now, the next question is, okay, that's good, but where exactly in King County can we do this type of project? That's going to be the next slide with Lynn.
All right. Thanks, Dave. So we have this map available on the community development webpage, so you can take a closer look at it after this ends. Because where can you do CDBG? The answer is it's complicated. And that's one of the reasons that we ask people, we are requiring folks who are either new to CDBG, have a capital project, which means some kind of building, you're working on something physical, or if you have not received an award within the last 3 years, we want you to contact us, and we will meet with you one-on-one before the pre-application is due, and we can talk about your project. We can talk about where it is, what you're doing, and whether CDBG is something that will work as a funding source for you. This being a general overview, we can say generally the places that are in orange here have got their own sources of CDBG funding. They are also considered entitlement. So they actually do their own CDBG funding, which could have different priorities from King counties, even though they are within King County. So if your project is physically based in one of these areas, or mostly serves people who are from there, you should talk to that area's CDBG program manager. If you don't know who they are or can't find them online, let us know. We can help put you in touch. So to drill down a little bit further, these are the areas that are generally eligible to apply for funding from our program, both by the Southeast subregion and by, the Northeast subregion and by the South subregion. In general, if your project is physically located here or is mostly serving folks who are themselves eligible, that is low and moderate income, from these areas, your project is very likely to be able to be eligible to apply for our funding. Both of these areas also include unincorporated King County, either in Northeast or in the South. And if you're not sure, again, talk to us and we can help walk you through it, because there are areas, for example, like Federal Way. City of Federal Way has got their own source of CDBG funding, but there's a small part of it that's actually considered within King County's area, and we have sometimes done projects there. So this is in list form, the generally ineligible areas for CDBG funding because they do receive their own. Again, let's talk about it, and we might be able to put you in touch with those areas' project managers. And now I'm going to hand you over to Andrea to talk about the application process.
Thanks, Lynn. So for this RFP, we are requiring a pre-application process in order to submit a full application. So we will go through the timeline in a minute, but make sure, and I'll also give you a review of Zoom Grants itself to show you where the pre-application process is located. But first, we will go through a pre-application that will be reviewed by the CDBG team. And you will be notified whether you are approved to move forward to a full application or will not be eligible to move forward. If you are approved, then there will be a separate process through Zoom Grants as well for full application, and make sure to apply by the time and due date when we go over the timeline to apply for that. We also here at DCHS offer free grant assistance through third-party organizations who can help you with the drafting of your application, whether you're eligible, things like that. They do prioritize organizations that have fewer than 20 full-time staff or that mostly serve BIPOC people, but they are all applicants are eligible. Next slide. So I was just mentioning the pre-application process must be received in Zoom Grants no later than 2 p.m. Pacific time on May 19th. If you are approved to move forward, the full application is due in Zoom Grants no later than 2 p.m. on June 20th. And we make that at 2 p.m. just so someone is always available in case there are technical issues. So please regularly check Zoom Grants for any updates, clarifications, or amendments to the RFP. They'll be located in the library section, which I will show you in just a minute within Zoom Grants. If you are experiencing technical issues with Zoom Grants, please submit either a ticket to me, the RFP lead at DCHS contracts kingcounty.gov, and that will be in the program description as well. Or you can contact Zoom Grants directly at questions@zoomgrants.com, and they are pretty responsive, but they are on Mountain Time, so just remember that. Also, when you are submitting either your pre-application or your application, please allow sufficient time in case there are technical difficulties. The 2 p.m. deadline is a hard deadline, and we can't accept applications after that. So make sure that you are submitting all of your materials on time, just in case there are any issues. And I think with that, I will show you a demo of Zoom Grants. I can share my screen. Let's see. Can you see my screen? Yep, cool. So when you click on the link, and I'll put the link in the chat to the RFP, it will take you to this screen. You do not have to have an account with Zoom Grants in order to reach this screen, but to start an application, you do have to have an account with Zoom Grants. To do that, if you already have one, and right here in the top right corner, you can use your Zoom Grants user ID, which is generally your email, and your password to log in. If you are new to Zoom Grants, you click on this button and create an account, and then you can move forward with your application. Zoom Grants does use a tab system. So you'll see down here, it shows the description of the RFP. However, you can use these blue tabs to hide the language in case you want to kind of condense down to some other, or you can click on this and show the requirements and description again. So if you scroll down, it gives you more information. The general information about the RFP is all located here. Also the restrictions that Lynn was just describing. And then down here in sort of the middle is the library section or library tab. And this has all the required RFP documents. This includes those grant assistance bios that I was just talking about here, the general CDBG guidelines, how to determine census area eligibility, making a service area map, and then CDBG entitlement cities map. This will also be where we upload any Q&A or amendments to the RFP, so always look for updated information in this section. Down here is where you'll start your application process. First in the summary tab is where you'll enter in your organizational information. And then here, we always ask in our RFPs where you will be providing services. This helps us report back to King County Council where we actually are providing services within King County. You'll then move to the pre-application tab where it has an instructions, and then down here where you'll provide your response to each question. Please note that Zoom Grants doesn't have a save button, but what happens is you will enter in your response here, and if you click out of this box or click to the next box, it will automatically save for you. Zoom Grants is a great tool, however, it does have some quirks within Zoom, these text box. It does not like special characters. So we do suggest that applicants write out their responses in either like a Word document or Notepad first. For one reason, so you have backup in case there are technical difficulties. And second, so you can make sure that you do not have any bullet points, underline, subscript, anything like that. If you do try to cut and paste into Zoom Grants with those special formatting, they call it this green save button of death. It'll just save here and have the save button and won't actually save your application. So please look for that as well. So make sure that you scroll down all the way through this whole section to respond to each part. Down here are the required documents to upload for this pre-application process. To do that, you just click this blue upload button and find it on your desktop and then push upload. If there is a document here like this low moderate income that's actually not applicable to your application, we still require that you upload a document here, but just write not applicable in like a Word document and save it here. Once that's complete, you can then hit this submit pre-application. Zoom Grants will do a quick check to make sure you have completed all the required sections. And if yes, it will then submit and send a notice to our team to either approve or deny. I think with that, I think it's back to Lynn. Stop sharing.
Thanks. I will share my screen once again. Okay. Is it visible? Great. So this is what it looks like, what our timeline is. As you can see, it takes a while to get the money actually from HUD. So we opened the pre-application on May 1st. We are doing the required pre-application consultations for folks who've got capital projects, new applicants, or who have not applied or received CDBG within the last 3 years. This is the second of our 2 general information sessions. We've covered the same information at both of them, just with different questions asked. And again, if you are going to get if you do need to schedule a pre-application meeting with us, please do so by Friday. Reach out and we will get that scheduled for you. So pre-applications are due 2 o'clock on May 19th, as Andrea said. Unfortunately, there's no wiggle room with that deadline. So if you're having any trouble, please reach out to us before then and let us know. We will let applicants know about whether they are eligible to move on to a full application by the 26th. So at the latest. Full applications are also due 2 o'clock on June 20th. And then the panel, which is comprised of both people within CDBG and folks outside of King County, are going to do our own review. And we will reach out as needed to folks no later than July 31st. We will then finalize our award recommendations and submit them to the Joint Recommendations Committee, a regional committee that reviews this, and they will either accept them or modify them. And then we will let applicants know with award or non-award emails in the last quarter of the year. Then we will make our plan publicly available in December for public review and comment. HUD sends us the funding approximately in May of next year. However, we can start certain projects before May. So if you think you would need to do that, please let us know during your pre-application conference. And then we start contracting in June 2024. We can start, we can backdate the contract, although I think we're using different terminology than that. Our contract year actually begins January 1st of 2024. Depending on the activity and the nature of your project. So again, that's something that we would need to talk a little bit more about. We may be able to help pay for some of your activities that you do before we actually finalize the contract in June of 2024. We absolutely cannot reimburse for anything that's done, any of your expenses prior to January of 2024. With the rest, we may have some wiggle room. And with that, we can take your questions. Who would like to get started? Since I'm sharing my screen, I actually don't have access to the chat. So if anyone has posted in there.
I'm monitoring chat. We don't have any yet.
Okay, great. You've got us for another half hour. Ask us anything.
Good afternoon, Lynn. Mike Fitzpatrick, Seduce Tap Parks Department. I think in an earlier session attended probably a couple years ago, CDBG staff shared kind of the anticipated total funding amount potentially available. Are you guys at liberty to share that information?
Right now, we're estimating about $1 million. And that's total for both the Northeast and the South subregion.
Great, thank you.
We tend to apportion that by proportion of low and moderate income people. So in general, the South subregion gets about 2/3 of the funding. Any other questions?
Hey, Lynn, this is Ben, City Duval. How does that million compare to the past couple of years? Is that right about the same?
Lori, would you like to take that?
Yeah, it's it's probably a little less than we've actually received. But we do this just as an estimate because we don't ever know what HUD's going to do. And we also have recapture and program income that comes into the calculation, and we won't have that for a while yet.
Okay, thank you.
Something I'd like to point out, in our website, and I just put the link to it. It's a very simple one. It's kingcounty.gov/CDBG is the shortened URL. At the bottom of that webpage, you can look at the prior year's funding awards, and that can give a lot of you an idea of like how it all kind of shakes out. So those are at the bottom of that page, and I just put a link in. And again, you just want to type it in now. It's kingcounty.gov/CDBG.
And so Dave, does that include the entitlement from HUD?
No, it just shows what our past 21 and 22 awards were.
Okay, great.
So people can just get an idea of what they look like.
Okay.
Would anyone else like to jump in with a question or put one in the chat? All right, well, thank you everyone for attending. And we look forward to learning more about your projects.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Take care.